14 truckers were just, if you pay attention to the mainstream media or for that matter, the government, let off the hook for their crimes at Coutts, Alberta. But there's a much different story happening there. And the man who made it happen, at least him and his team, is Chad Williamson from Williamson Law. He's got the full story for us, and I'm very happy to welcome Chad back to the show. Chad, how's it going?
It's very busy as always. As you know, we deal with not just trucker issues, but a whole host of issues surrounding constitutional freedoms, charter rights. We obviously run a pretty busy practice just doing boring law for regular old Albertans, and obviously that stuff's important too. So we're slammed. I'm coming up on one of the first vacations I get this year, and I think it's going to get cut short with some of the work that I have to do, but I plan on recuperating a bit because we've got some pretty busy stuff coming up later on this year. But I've got great news for everybody in respect of some of the work that we're doing on Coutts. Yeah,
you've really just had your pedal to the metal lately because you're working so hard on so many of our cases. You know, you're working on even just things that are we initially reported on, and then they're sort of dragging their feet through the court system, like, you know, the case of Mom's Diner and a few others. And we'll get an update on those towards the end of the interview. But tell us exactly what happened with these 14 truckers from Coutts, Alberta.
Yeah, fair. So what had happened is there's been a whole host of charges that have been laid in relation to allegations of criminal and regulatory misconduct, obviously, down during the Coutts border blockade. So we've been appointed to some of those. Some of them we haven't been appointed to. There's obviously some more serious charges, namely, of course, the allegations of criminal mischief against the alleged organizers of the blockade. We're still going through almost 81 gigabytes of disclosure on that. So that's a pretty thick file. We've got some other mischief charges. But one of the big files that we've got was all of the tickets that were basically handed down and laid to people who had allegedly had equipment parked out on that highway. It's my understanding that we had, I believe, 35 intakes or something. So they laid quite a few charges. And now most of these charges are, Highway Safety Traffic Act tickets, and not necessarily criminal charges, but more regulatory kind of in nature. So just a bunch of ticket cases. Obviously, with some of the help that we've received from the generous donors that are funding the lovely Democracy Fund, as always, we've been able to appoint an amazing lawyer to that file, our very own Sean Mahalshan, who is not just an amazing lawyer and a guy with a great beard, but also a guy who is, I believe, a 17-year veteran of the Canadian Forces. He did a tour of Afghanistan. He's an amazing guy, and there couldn't have been anyone better to have been appointed to these seemingly nuisance tickets that people got for allegedly having this stuff down on the highway. Now, we had a schwack of them, Sheila. So we did a whole bunch of intakes, very similar to like the Fight the Fine stuff, right? As soon as we opened the floodgates for these files to come in.
Terrible.
And I've got to give a lot of credit to my little sister, Ellie Williamson, who runs the front desk and the initial intakes here. She's probably one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And she's kind of the first point of contact for all of the truckers, all of the restaurateurs, people who are hit with masking tickets, social distancing tickets. Ellie's been the lovely and kind smiling face that has helped bring those folks into the firm before a lawyer's appointed to them. So just turning, of course, to these tickets, we got a schwack of them. We've had 14 of them totally gassed, and this is amazing. So Sean's a pretty clever cookie, and we're all nerds here. You can't see it, but I've actually got 4 giant monitors in front of me. Like, it looks like I'm sitting in like a NASA space office here. And I often have clients come in, accuse me of trading crypto and being a day trader kind of while I juggle my law career. But I assure you, I just need this to be able to look at like multiple documents at once. Sean has a similar setup, and I mean, the guy's great with computers, despite the fact that he's also really handy with a firearm. And he's, served our country for, a long time.
He's a Renaissance man.
He's an interesting dude. So again, his name is Sean Mahalshin, great guy. He's just started his own law firm called Highland Law, which is kind of cool. And of course, we still hire him to do a whole bunch of work, and he still works quite a bit with us under the Williamson Law banner. And he's just a great guy. So Sean, in his wisdom, he determined that the parking violations that were handed down to these particular 14 individuals and organizations required, in the offense specifically, that the offense had to occur on highways outside of an urban area. It didn't take long to pull up a quick Google map and review some of the what I would consider to be maybe lazy disclosure footage that was provided to us by the prosecutors on this matter to determine that all of these tickets were issued within the corporate limits of Coutts, which invalidated the tickets. So this is, I mean, it's a technicality, but you know what? We'll take it. After bringing that to the attention of the Crown simply just withdrew 14 of these charges against these truckers and their owner corporations that own the vehicles. Now we still have, I believe, 15 left. And we've got a pretty robust strategy there. You've been kind of watching some of the work that we've done in the Whistle Stop Matter, and obviously in relation to the Fight the Fine stuff, which is very interesting because, of course, we had about 55 files or maybe 100. I think we opened 125 files, something like that, and then we whittled it down to about 50, which were a little bit more drawn out. We just had another ticket, so we only have 3 left. And this is, I mean, out of all of them, we got them all gassed, which is pretty amazing. We just had, and of course, this was Sean Mahalshin. He ran this one to trial. This was a gentleman who got a ticket for taking off his mask during a medical emergency on an airliner. There is a long written decision on that one. Poof, that one's gone as well. Not guilty, which is absolutely amazing. We've only got 2 left. Out of all the Fight the Fines files, we still don't have 1 conviction at trial, which is absolutely crazy considering the amount of money, power that the government put behind not only the manpower required to go out and investigate and lay these charges, serve people with the tickets, health inspectors, all this bureaucracy, only to go to the Crown to have us put up a bristled defense on every single one of them. Again, thanks to the generous contributions from the Civil Liberties Charity Democracy Fund. We got 2 left. We got Mr. Langlois and we've got Chris Scott. And in those cases, we've brought fulsome disclosure applications to get to the very heart of what we consider to be the political reason for these charges, and obviously maybe not related to public health. And those are the allegations. We'll see what the evidence, or what comes out with the evidence. But in respect to the 15 trucker tickets, Sheila, that we've got left, if these aren't withdrawn, and again, these are just, I mean, they're traffic and they're highway safety tickets. We plan on approaching these with the same gusto and the same vigor that we have approached every case that has been so wonderfully brought to our office. And we're obviously grateful to do such cool work for people out there, for Albertans, who have been struggling through not just the pandemic, but through the border blockade, people expressing their constitutional right to freedom of association, freedom of expression, freedom of political association and assembly, and people who we consider their rights to have been trampled by the aggressive overreach of this monolithic, the remnants of the ghost of the monolithic Jason Kenney government that we just cannot seem to put out of its misery.
That was an excerpt from the Ezra Levant Show. I'm Ezra Levant. Every weekday, I do a monologue about the topic of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest, either in studio or via Skype. And then I read your mail, whether it's fan mail or hate mail, which is sometimes even more interesting. This is on our premium service, though, called Rebel News Plus. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. It's $8 a month or less if you buy a whole year in advance. You get my show every weeknight, plus Sheila Gunn Reid's show every week. It's called The Gun Show. It's pretty amazing. You know, we rely on you because we do not take a dime from the government. In Canada, that makes us almost unique. So please help us out and help yourself to some great journalism at rebelnewsplus.com.